Hey y'all, it's me, Kevvie. If you saw my last video, then you'll remember that I split this wrap-up into two parts. Part 1 was exclusively my Pride reads. Now part 2 is going to be all the books that I read in May, plus the non-Pride books that I read in June. Quick notes that there will be some queer books included in this video, but that's because I read them in May, so they weren't part of my Pride reading. So now let's get right into all those books I read in May. I started May reading a book that I absolutely hated, Detransition, baby. Check out my full review of it here and in the description to see all the reasons why I hated it. I also read a wonderfully queer, cozy mystery called Mammoth Drop. Check out my Getting Gay with NetCallie video to see my full thoughts on that one. So y'all know one of my favorite reads this year was Fierce Femmes and Notorious Liars by Cheng Thom. I loved that book so much. I decided to read another one of her books, a collection of poetry and essays titled I Hope We Choose Love. This is a wonderful collection about mental health, discrimination, religion, family, and so much more. It's divided into 3 parts. Let us live, let us love, and let us believe. I found part 2 to be really triggering. That section was all about consent and the Me Too movement. Said lots of great stuff, but was just really hard for me to read. Now I want to share with you 2 of my favorite poems from this collection. The first is titled You Are Allowed to Leave. A relationship, a friendship, a partnership. Because it is not working out for you. Because they are hurting you. Because you are afraid of hurting them. Because there is no trust. Relationships should never be based on fear. Should never be based on, they will kill themselves if I leave. An adult human life is too much. Too much for any one person to hold. Repeat it after me. Hold it close to your heart as you walk away, as you grieve the loss, as you find yourself. Leaving is not abuse. Getting out is not abuse. Freedom is not abuse. Freedom is never abuse. The next poem is titled How Many Times? How many times has the queer community broken your heart? How many times would you let a lover break you before you walked away? How has the queer community loved you? Oh, I relate to that poem so deeply. I used to feel so at home and embraced by the community, and then they've just turned on me so much and just made me feel unsafe and unwelcome. I mean, which is the whole reason I came here, because this is a community where y'all are actually nice to me and make me feel like I'm okay and I'm welcome. So, thank y'all. And queer community needs some fucking work. Also, I believe this quote from the titular essay really captures the core of this book. We must love ourselves. We must encourage love. Love that is radical. Love that digs deep. Love that asks the hard questions. That is ready to listen to the whole story and keep loving anyway. Love for the survivors. Love for the perpetrators. Love for the survivors who have perpetrated and the perpetrators who have survived. Love for the community that has failed us all. We live in poison. The planet is dying. We can choose to consume each other, or we can choose love. Even in the midst of despair, there's always a choice. I hope we choose love. Next in May, we had another installment of the Discworld read-along with Katya, Rosie, and Scott. This time we read Sorcery, the first-ish book in the Wizard series, as long as you don't count the first 2 twin novels, which most people don't. If you've been following along with my Discworld reading, you'll know that my favorite part of reading these books is finding the theme and identifying all the different ways that theme was woven into the narrative. Without a doubt, the theme of Sorcery is destiny. Right from the beginning, we are told that the 8th son of an 8th son is destined to be a wizard. But the 8th son of a wizard is destined to become a sorcerer, a source of magic. When the sorcerer Coin is born, his father decides to cheat death, altering his destiny by inhabiting his son's wizard staff, and thus wielding power over Coin and influencing his destiny to become a great and powerful ruler. Then there's Rincewind, the lovable, bumbling fool who's basically like the LaCroix of wizards, just a hint of magic ability. Rincewind hates adventures and longs for a simple, mundane life. However, his destiny is to go on adventure after adventure. Konina is destined to be a barbarian like her father, but she wants to be a hairdresser. Nigel is destined to be a farmer like his father, but he wants to be a barbarian. Luggage's destiny is to follow Rincewind wherever he may go. And then there's falling in love. Is it their destiny to be together? There's also this little quote. One single inspiration particle is clipping along unaware of its destiny, which is just as well, because its destiny is to strike, in a matter of hours, a tiny area in Rincewind's mind. Without a doubt, my favorite character in this story is the Luggage. Luggage is such a precious companion. Envision a treasure chest, but it's alive. Inside its opening is a giant tongue and teeth, and on its bottom are an infinite number of corgi-sized people legs. Luggage's destiny is to be a companion, to follow its owner anywhere, even outside of time or to other dimensions. Wherever its owner goes, the luggage will follow, and probably eat a few people. Yes, the luggage eats people. The entire book, I was just waiting and waiting for it to get hungry. And then it did! It ate people and it was so cool! Oh, I love the luggage. Oh, I hope there's more of him in other books. And as usual with Discworld novels, this book was fucking hilarious. I think my favorite part was the appendectomy. Anything involving the librarian. Oh, and when Rincewind's at the bar and someone whispers to him, psst, and he says, not very, but I'm working on it. Because, you know, in British speak, pissed means drunk. Oh, this book was so much fun. I am loving reading my way through the disc and cannot wait to read our next one. I read another Discworld novel at the end of June, my first one that wasn't part of the read-along. This time I read Eric, a twist on the classic Faustian tale. At the end of Sorcery, Rincewind is in an inconvenient location, so before I read The Last Hero, the one I already have on my shelves, in which he plays a prominent role, I needed to know how he got back from wherever he was, which happens in Eric. I really enjoyed this one. Unlike the rest of the Discworld novels, I had a hard time identifying a theme for this novel. I mean, aside from the obvious Faust references, there doesn't seem to be an overarching theme, and there weren't as many side plots through which to examine such a theme. However, after thinking about it for a while, I could argue that be careful what you wish for is the theme. The primary example being Eric trying to summon a demon who will grant him 3 wishes, and instead summoning Rincewind. Then there's each of the 3 wishes. To become a king, to meet the most beautiful woman, and to live forever. Each of these wishes gets granted in the most catastrophic manner. Then there's a lot of side characters we meet briefly who have similar sort of experiences. There's the adventurer in the jungle who wishes to find the Fountain of Youth. The Odysseus stand-in wishing to have an uneventful trip home. The ancient god who wished to be feared and respected. And the king of hell who wished to put his own spin on their torture methods. Each of these wishes came with unintended consequences. It may have been a sloppier execution of the theme than in other books, but it was still there at least. And as usual with the series, Eric was hilarious. The best part was when Rincewind and Eric went back in time to the Discworld's equivalent of the Trojan War. Oh my gosh, I was laughing so much during that section. Also, this book must be one of the shortest books in the series, because it's barely 150 pages. So I was able to finish it in just a couple of days. Certainly not the best of the Discworld novels I've read so far, but I still loved it. Also, if you want to join our Discworld read-along, we will be reading Guard's Guard starting July 15th. Make sure to come to our kickoff event on Katya's channel. I'll have all the information right here. Read along with us and let me know if you want to be in our Discord chat. I'll give you the link. At the end of May, I read Agatha Christie's The Mystery of the Blue Train, which was a big deal for me because it was my first Christie since February. I don't know what happened, y'all. I guess I've just got so many books on my TBR that Agatha Christie had to take a back seat for a while. I didn't read any more Christies in June, but I am hoping to get back into her later this summer. So I've never read 1984, but I had an opportunity to read the graphic novelization of it, so I snatched that up. Oh, I loved it. The art style was so bleak and drab and really reflected that dystopian setting. I had a vague idea of what the story was about going into it, and I thoroughly enjoyed that evocative story. I think the biggest surprise for me was the novel's romance elements. The romance is actually a significant part of the book, but it's never mentioned when people discuss 1984 in the media. It was really good, and I'm glad I can now understand what people mean when they say this or that is like 1984, even if they themselves don't know what they mean. I read another graphic novel in June, and this one is called I Hate Fairyland. Y'all, this one is so funny. It's about a little girl who gets magically transported to the realm of fairies and other magical beings. And in order to go home, she has to go on a quest to find a key. However, 30 fucking years later, she still hasn't found this damn key. And while she looks the same on the outside, on the inside, she's aged all of those years. And she is so fed up with all this shit. At this point, she does not give a fuck about anyone in Fairyland and will gladly kill everyone who gets in her way, or even just minorly inconveniences her. This graphic novel does one of my favorite aesthetics, combining cutesy with extreme gore. This book is violent and graphic and not for the squeamish or faint of heart, but it was so much fun, and I would love to keep reading this series. I read one children's book in this window, which was the new release Pink is Not a Color by Lindsay Ward. It's about Pink, who has an existential crisis when she realizes she's not invited to the other colors' rainbow party because she's not part of the rainbow, and therefore not a real color. This was a cute story and a fun way to introduce color theory at a young age. The first audiobook I listened to in May was Germinal. Scott recommended this book for me after I hated the Communist Manifesto, and he said there was a scene in this book which I would find hysterical. With that in mind, I was so excited to get listening. Germinal is the story of a mining village in 19th century France, where the miners are being exploited and underpaid. When a traveler wanders into town and begins working in the mine, he begins to plant the seed of revolution into the miners' minds. Oh, it is so good. Watching the town get more and more radicalized, and then the effects that happens on the mine, its owners, and the workers was just fantastic. That is exactly the kind of communist literature I was looking for. The book does, however, suffer from a terrible case of #men writing women, and it is fucking hilarious. My favorite example was when Zola wrote that this woman's breasts grew larger when she cries. Like, yes, it's ridiculous and might have been even a little offensive at times. Oh, but it was so fucking funny, I didn't give a damn. Also, Scott was absolutely right about that scene. As he described this book in his Summarizing 50 Classics video, there's the scene with the penis. Oh my gosh, y'all. I don't know if the scene was meant to be shocking or horrifying or disturbing, but I just could not stop laughing. Brilliant image. 10 out of 10, gave me everything I wanted from that scene. And then there was another scene toward the end of the book that I loved even more. Quick spoilers, here's a time skip, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So in the end, Etienne, his lover, and her husband are trapped in the mine together as it floods. Friction has been increasing between these two men for a while now, and while trapped together, they finally come to blows, and Etienne bashes the guy's skull in with a rock. Oh, that was so good. Juicy, satisfying kill. But then, after they've tossed his body into the floodwaters, the corpse keeps floating back to them. It just keeps coming back for days and days as a constant horrible reminder of what they've done, and it's just so funny. Oh, that was absolutely my favorite part of the book. So yeah, this was an excellent recommendation from Scott and satisfied my thirst for entertaining communism. Then I listened to Dante's Inferno, basically as a placeholder until I could decide what book I wanted to listen to next. It was fine, really underwhelmed me. The whole time I felt so indifferent towards it, which shocked me because when I've watched people discuss this book or give summaries or whatever, they're always so good and entertaining. So I expected to love it. But no, I could take it or leave it, but more than likely just leave it. Feeling burnt out on classics, I decided my next audiobook would be Stephen King. I was excited because while I've read his short stories for a while now, this was going to be my first time reading one of his novels. After much deliberation, I chose Under the Dome. One day, out of the blue, an impenetrable giant dome surrounds the small town of Chester's Mill, Maine, isolating them from the rest of the world. This setup quickly leads to a struggle for power as the worst sides of people begin to surface. Oh, it was so good. Such a Stephen King kind of story, right? Allowing these characters to be awful to each other. Just perfect. One thing I really enjoyed about this book, and King's work in general, is that you never know what's in store. Who's behind this giant dome? Is it some twisted psycho? The government? Aliens? A mass hallucination? All these things are in the realm of possibility with Stephen King. One of the reasons I chose this book was its length. This book is long, clocking in at over 1,000 pages, and the audiobook was 35 hours. I love a long audiobook because it means I can be invested in the story for weeks. Any opportunity, I would be listening. Cleaning the house, commuting to work, it became routine. It's been over a month since I read this book, and I still get that sensation of, ooh, time to turn on Under the Dome when I'm going to do certain tasks. I really loved my time in Chester's Mill, and now I can solidly say that I am a Stephen King fan and cannot wait to read more of his work. While I was listening to Under the Dome, Stephen King released a new audiobook and short story, which were exclusive to Scribd, the platform I was using to listen to Under the Dome. So I took a quick break from Under the Dome to listen to this new short story called Finn. Finn is about a guy who walks past his doppelganger and then gets abducted in a case of mistaken identity. First of all, the Irishness of this story is a lot. He tried so hard to make everything sound so super Irish that it pulled me out of the story. From what I've read of Stephen King, he seems to really like playing up cultural differences in an over-the-top sort of way, almost to the point of parody. So yeah, that really could have been toned down a bit. The ending of the story was mildly interesting, but I've seen it done better by other authors, even in other books in the same video. It just felt like King needed some sort of twist ending because he's Stephen King, and went, sure, that'll do. I don't know, it just didn't work for me. Overall, I'd say Finn wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. It was just adequate. I finished a third Stephen King book in June. This was the short story collection Skeleton Crew, which I had been reading since March with the Bookish Drummers book club over on Discord. I will be posting a video ranking all the Skeleton Crew short stories. I just wanted to wait until I finished putting out all my Pride content. Also, now that we finished Skeleton Crew and took a brief little break, we've just moved on to the next collection, Nightmares and Dreamscapes. We're only a couple of stories in so far, and I'm already really loving it. We'll be reading Nightmares and Dreamscapes one story at a time through the end of the year. If that sounds fun to you, let me know and I'll send you that Discord link. Oh, I would love to have more people to talk to in the conversations. It's so much fun. Whew! Yay, I finally did it. I made it through my move, and I finally delivered on the wrap-up that I'd skipped. You know the drill by now. Let me know down below which of these books you want to read. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if it pleases and sparkles, I'll see you in the next video. Mwah!